I welcome all my viewers and panelists on the behalf of SCAI. Today's subject of discussion is ESG and green initiatives in shopping malls. To discuss this, we have eminent personalities from this field in our panel. So let me introduce you to our panelist, Mr. Nilesh Singh. He is Senior Vice President, ESG and Business Excellence, Nexus Select Trust. Mr. Sailesh Tyagi, Climate Change and Sustainability Leader, Consulting Deloitte South Asia. And Mr. Shabir Kanchwala, he is Chief Sustainability Officer and Senior Vice President, K. Raheja Corp. Sailesh shall be moderating this session. So over to Sailesh.
Anji, thank you. Thanks so much. And first of all, warm welcome to everyone who has made time, that too on a Friday evening, right? To talk about something so important. Every board meeting I go, or I go and talk to my 13-year-old son, everyone is talking about sustainability or environmental, social, and governance. And I'm keen to, before I go out to our experts, in my opinion, Nilesh and Shabir, I'm little keen if I can demystify ESG, right? Because since I started my career late 90s to now, this has changed terms. And for the past 2 years, we talked a lot about environmental, social, and governance, right? And here we are to talk about green initiatives. So what is ESG? Very quickly, ESG is not about CSR impact. ESG is not about just planting trees. ESG is about looking at a business from a value creation framework and think about a business where you have inputs, outcomes, and impacts. ESG is about looking at your financial capital, which we can pick up any company's annual report and we understand their financial health. Absolutely. But can we really create that financial impact, financial value creation without people? And when we talk about people, we are talking about human capital, employees attraction and retention, right? We operate in an environment and that's our value chain. So that's social capital. Any relationship a company has with their customers, their suppliers, regulators, investors, right? And then of course, today's topic is natural capital, is that green initiative. When you look at any you can say company, first thing we ask, what experience I'm getting in that shopping mall? Does it has, if I have a Tesla or I have an Exxon, doesn't matter, Tesla, back of my wife goes in a Tesla to a mall in Sydney, or one of my colleagues goes in an Exxon here in Bangalore. Do they have EV charging stations there? I'm just giving one example. So what is the experience? And when I look at the mall, do I look at the bins on waste, look at the circular economy side of things, the impact on water, right? So think from that angle, that's natural capital. So what company looking at the business from the lens of these four capitals, to simplify, and as an input into the business, and what are the outcomes they are getting through this consumption of natural resources, engagement with community and society and customers in this case, and taking care of employees, right? Creating financial value, the outcomes, and are you measuring impact in all those areas? So that's ESG, right? Just and looking at it holistic, integrated thinking in a business. That's where we are at the moment. Now, with that thinking, I will quickly jump to Nilesh and Shabir, in that order, because they are really doing a lot in this space in their respective workplaces. They are the leaders who are driving the safety, the sustainability transformation. Safety is part of it, absolutely. But overall, it's the experience how they are providing. So welcome again, Nilesh and Shabir, and I have a lot of respect for you. So my questions will be really driving where the sector is going, what kind of effective strategy you have in place to take care of the market trends. or as an example, if a lot of focus on online shopping, how you are taking customers from online shopping to give them an experience, again, brick and mortar experience, right? A practical in-store experience, right? And how you're really implementing an effective ESG program. What are some of the material ESG issues or green issues you are really handling at the moment? So I'll start with you, Nilesh, and so my question is, I mean, what kind of strategic initiative, helicopter view, if you have at the moment on the sector, and then of course for your own operations, what are you doing? What is your kind of an effective strategy? How you're adapting to various demands and changes in the market? Over to you, please, Nilesh.
Thank you, Salesh. That was a very nice introduction to ESG and how it's relevant to our small industry. As you rightly said, it's redefining how we do businesses today. Uh, Probably it's a more responsible and a sustainable approach of doing the same day-to-day operations, but in a better way. Uh, like few people say, it's about doing well by doing good. Uh, the strategy today is a lot dependent on how responsible that company is. While the government is making the ESG reporting mandatory very soon, but today it's largely dependent on the responsible companies today to disclose their ESG related parameters to public. We recently published our third ESG report, Shalish, and I'll encourage everyone on this call to go to Nexus Select Trust website and download the report and read it to know more about our strategy and the initiatives that we take at Nexus Malls. And do share the feedback with us positively. Um, at Nexus Malls, ESG is deeply ingrained in our business strategy, Shalish, and is central to almost every decision that we make today. Now, if you ask me a few years back, probably it was not the case. ESG is definitely a new buzzword, but we still had a lot of initiatives like our renewable energy. It goes way back as 7 years in the system. We always had policies which were related to ESG, but just that we were not making it publicly available, or the data that revolves around the ESG parameters, they were not publicly disclosed. So when 2 years back, when we decided to get into ESG, the first thing that we did was we conducted our materiality assessments uh, to know the topics which concern our stakeholders. Now, when I say stakeholders, it includes everyone. It includes our investors, it includes our employees, mall tenants, our vendors, our customers, and the leadership team at Nexus Malls. And the next step was to identify these key material issues, and the next step was to make it a framework. So we adopted a 6-pillared ESG framework, Shailesh, two under each category, two under environment, two under social and governance. And that's how we tried covering all the material topics which were relevant to us. Uh, Today, the ESG is as a topic is deeply ingrained in our business strategy, as I said, and this was largely possible due to the strong leadership that we have and a very well engaged mall teams that we have across our malls. And not to forget the knowledgeable partners like you, Shailesh, who helped us get where we are today. Uh, I remember a few months back, American counterpart, ESG counterpart, asked me a question about why ESG is making such strong inroads in India. My answer to him was that it is there in our culture, it is there in our values. Uh, we have been brought up worshipping trees and waterways around our houses, so it comes very naturally to us. After I said this, probably I spent another 30 minutes explaining to him what it means. Uh, uh, but it was a good discussion that I had with him. So that's about we at Nexus Malls, Shailesh.
That's brilliant. And you know, I really like the way you explained about the compliance side of it, the mandatory reporting. You talked about how it's ingrained in our culture. I really liked the way you explained there's a process you have in place, identifying what's material, not randomly going, and what's material in those aspects, and then coming up with action points. That's brilliant because, I mean, this market trends, this push for better ESG performance is not gonna go away. It's a journey, right? It's not a goal. We need to work on it and providing that experience. No, thank you, Nilesh. And as always, it's very clear, you always provide very clear perspective based on your own experience. So Shabir, coming to you, and I have the same question for you, but I'll add a little different spin to it. Now, when we see our investors, they are very much interested, right, in the sector, but their expectations are changing, right? Whether they're private equity and venture capital funds, they are looking at justifiable risk-return rewards in their investments, right? And the best way is that how ESG comes in and really show them that it's someone who has better ESG initiatives, doing what matters, having a trend, and showing the output will stand out and be more attractive to investors, right? So with that spin, and the same question to you, I'm very keen to understand all the stuff we are doing at strategic level, and then we can come down to specific green initiatives, which you would like to highlight later on. Over to you, Shabir, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Shailesh. At Innovate Malls, sustainability is something which has been ingrained to us in the sense that we have always worked on building sustainable malls, what we call green malls, right from the time. So whether you look at our malls in Mumbai or in Hyderabad or in Baroda or the new one which is getting constructed in Vizag, we've always looked at those kind of initiatives, even when 2006 is a long time back when we started doing that. Having said that, yes, we concentrated on the 4 pillars which we worked on. So we looked at something what we call as preserve the planet. Then we looked at promoting self well-being, which includes well-being of employees and the health and safety of our customers. Then we looked at a pillar of prosper relationships, in the sense when we looked at community engagement, when you looked at tenant engagement, customers who enter our mall, the satisfaction levels, and a sustainable supply chain. The last is the proficient governance, which obviously talks about corporate governance and the risk resilience. So we kind of restricted ourselves to these 4 and addressing the 18 material topics which we looked at. Having said that, when I talk about the green initiative in malls, that is, we have a long list in terms of what we have done. So 70% of the water in my malls is recycled water. We have the largest sewage treatment mall at our Vashi location, which has a capacity of almost 550 KLD. So our focus on whether it's energy management, water stewardships, waste management, biophilic design, or building certification. All these 5 or 6 issues which we, issues for 5 or 6 focus areas which we have looked at, right from the 2000 onwards when we looked at that. So it was a journey which we started, and because as a group, K-Raja Corp group started this journey way back in 2006. We were the first ones to sign a MOU with SCAI Green Building Council, that we would only construct, whatever we construct, whether it's a green mall or a green office or a green home or a green hotel. So Inorbit obviously fell in that portfolio of our overall, requirement of going green. So that's where we are in terms of what we did. Thank you.
No, thanks, Shabir. And this time I would like to start with you as an extension to what you covered. And what is really driving you to have this structured approach, very focused approach, very clear strategy? One of the criticism of any company, not this sector, overall, not having a very clear strategy. I really like the way you explained the strategic pillars and focus. Brilliant. But what's really pushing you? What has changed over the past 2 years to have this structured approach? What's driving this change, Shabir, in your opinion?
So, we've worked on the entire sustainability curve. When I say that, I mean, green malls, and we looked at carbon neutrality, we looked at DJSI, we looked at RESB, we looked at net zero. We are signatories to the climate group for EV100, RE100. And of course, the ESG report, like Nilesh also mentioned, is something which we worked on 3.5 years back. And publishing the report was something which we did right now. So the whole idea was that, this company has been in existence since, the K. Raja Corp group since 1956. And we don't look at, cost alone, which drives, any green initiatives in any of our buildings. Having said that, from a 18% extra cost in 2006 to 3% for a gold green mall, it's something which we have worked on. Our investors, obviously, the initial investors, when they spoke to the K. Raja Corp group, they were pleasantly surprised, and they said, okay, we don't want to look at your portfolio of offices and malls. We would probably want to concentrate more on the sustainability. So more than half a day goes on, people talking about sustainability. Even if we look at SCAI, SCAI has a very young team of people from IIT and MBA graduates whose focus was only on the fact that what you guys have done on sustainability. So another important thing to mention is we have also worked on the fact that whatever numbers which go out in public domain get third-party verified. So we have an external agency, somebody like TUV, who verifies each and every number which flows out from my various departments. So whether it's a number from HR, it's a number from supply chain, whether it's a number from energy or water, that gets verified at site. And after that only it is put in the public domain. So SEBI was pleasantly surprised, and they went through the certified assurance report. So that is something I think, and of course with BRSR being compulsory for the first 1,000 companies, it's just the beginning. India is in the cusp of a ESG revolution, as it was in green buildings 10 years back. Thank you.
No, thank you. And Nilesh, this is very well summed up in terms of what our strategy, how they're driving value creation through ESG, right? I mean that's where I think Shabir is going. Not a compliance exercise. He covered that right in the end, but really like the way he's talking about prioritizing meaningful impact, ecosystem collaboration, right? He talked about that. It's leveraging synergies. But if I come to you, and I would like to pinpoint, it's the green initiative. What are some of the initiatives you are leading, driving across the organization on energy management and say waste management? If you'd like to highlight for the audience so that they know the specific act, and then of course it's all about measurement, real targets, setting up real targets, right, and achieving those targets and improving on it year on year. But over to you, Nilesh, if you can guide us a little bit around this.
Absolutely, Salesh. Absolutely. Green initiatives or the environmental aspect of ESG can be broadly broken down into three aspects: energy, waste, and water. Yeah. These are the most critical components of the environmental section. Now, like any other commercial building, mall consumes good amount of energy towards lighting, towards HVAC operations, towards vertical transportation. Happy to inform you, Shailesh, that Nexus Malls has installed over 35 megawatt of solar and wind projects, and between 40 to 45% of our energy needs of the common areas are met by these green energy sources. We have 3 active off-site solar plants, Shailesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and we recently commissioned something in Gujarat last month, which is almost 4.2 megawatt of a hybrid project involving solar and wind together. We are working on 2 more projects. So our target is to take this number to 55% of green energy consumption within this financial year itself. We have exhausted all our terrace spaces, Shailesh. We have put as many rooftops solar panels as we could do it. All the lights installed in our malls today are energy efficient LEDs, Shailesh, and these are centrally controlled either through BMS or through timer based devices or photo sensor based devices inside the mall. Another big initiative was on installing VFDs, variable frequency drives, in our cooling towers and AHUs, which ensure that the motors run in an optimal condition. You spoke about EV charging, Shailesh. We have today more than 170 plus EV charging stations across all our 18 malls in India. Just to make sure that every customer like you coming in an EV car should get a charging facility inside. Solar reflective paints. This is something which cropped up last couple of years. All our malls have solar reflective paints on the terraces, which has a direct impact on the HVAC cost, Shailesh. They have a greater ability to reject solar heat absorption, thus making the indoor ambient temperatures much cooler. So that was on the electricity side. On the waste side, while we know that the waste that gets generated inside the mall is not our own waste, but from the tenants that we have, but we are still responsible for disposing it in a responsible manner. As on date, all our malls have organic waste converters, Shailesh. Last year, we generated close to 26,000 kgs of manure that we used in our horticulture and gave it to farmers or to customers free of cost. We have managed to divert almost 91% of our waste from landfills, and the target is to be at 100% by 2025, Shailesh. On e-waste, we responsibly disposed almost 2 tons of e-waste on behalf of our customers last year. So we asked our customers to drop their e-waste at our malls, and we ensured that it was responsibly disposed. So that was electricity, waste. The third component, water, which is the most interesting one. We saved, or we recycled almost 5 lakh kiloliters of water across all the 18 malls that we have. And the regular water saving techniques like using aerators and all, we have it in all our malls. Talking about green initiative, we have an initiative called Lakes of Happiness, Shailesh, where we adopt lakes and we rejuvenate it, and we try and bring it to its past glory. We have done 2 lakes so far, one in Bangalore and the other one in Pune. There are 4 more in various stages of work, and the plan is to take it to 10, minimum 10 by the end of this financial year. So I think, these are. We have close to almost 45 plus initiatives under environment, Shailesh, but it's a big discussion. We can have it another day. I think the ones that I mentioned are the most critical ones that we have at Nexus Malls.
Yeah. No, this is very helpful, and I really like the way you explained not only specific initiatives what you're doing, but also more around overall. As they say, you covered EV, yeah, absolutely. But I guess when we look at, it's more of a holistic project, that infrastructure, right? You covered recycling, ask about waste. It's not about recycling, and which is very important. And I also understand a lot goes in at the onset, right? The design, right? The design side of it, right? How you really create the infrastructure. And then the operational phase, and that's what we are talking about. The same question I have for you, Shabir. I mean, if you look at what would be the top 3 green initiatives you would like to highlight for this audience based on what you're doing, and then also I would also like you to cover a little bit around water, right? Very important aspect on water. Energy and waste is covered, but what are you doing around? I mean, it can play, in water efficient fixtures. I mean, based on my work, it's like low. I mean, the usual is low flow toilets and faucets, right? Which use less water, and all those things have been happening. But what's your take on energy and waste? Quick ones. What's your take on the water side? So we get that perspective as well. Over to you, Shabir, please.
Shabir, sorry for entering in between. I request all my viewers, if something is coming to their mind, if they have some question, they can post it, which we shall be taking up at the end of the discussion. So please, Shabir, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Shailesh. Thank you, Anjeev. So I guess when we made green malls, majority of these green initiatives were covered, whether you looked at water, we looked at waste, or whether you looked at energy management. So, whether it's a cool roof on the top or a biophilic design, all that got covered in the green mall building certification. Having said that, yes, we have a used rooftop solar of almost 84 kilowatt in our mall at Hyderabad. The other thing which we have set targets for, we have set an ambitious goal of 50% of carbon neutrality by 2025 and 100% of carbon neutrality by 2030. So by doing that, obviously, we cover everything in terms of whether you are net zero water, net zero waste, net zero energy. So that's where we stand in terms of what our targets are. We have looked at what we called as zero liquid discharge, where we want to reduce and reuse of water. Of course, we have the recycling water plants everywhere. We have also connected this to an online quality monitoring system. In the sense, all my STPs are online connected, whereby the facility management person is able to gauge and find out immediately in case of any potential issues. Taking water forward, if we looked at the single-use plastic water bottles which are given out. So for that also, we try and ensure that any water which is left behind, whether it's in the food court or otherwise, that also gets put in one vessel. If I put it crudely, and then that gets utilized in some form or the other, whether we use it for washing or whether we use it for, and of course the reverse vending machine, where a person can put his empty plastic bottle and he gets a coupon which can be redeemed while shopping. So the circle obviously is there for when we talk about green initiatives. Our malls being green. So I can probably say that all our malls, including the Nexus malls, we are world class in terms of measures we have implemented, in our country, because a lot of malls, say in the Europe and US, are trying to catch up in terms of what they want to do, and we walk with them in terms of all our green measures which we have implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. And I literally am just looking at my notes, and one of the aspects is around supporting green brands, right? And what I've seen, if you ask me from my experience, Nilesh, I'll come to you now, is around added advantage, right? For some of the green brands. That's happening a lot globally, right? Whether it's right at the lease agreement or also in terms of the branding for you as well. So any comment on that, Nilesh? Because it's right at the onset here in India, but anything you would like to highlight on what you're observing?
Sure, Shailesh. So there are various advantages of adopting ESG policies or practices at our mall level or at operational level. There are recognition and awards too.
Okay.
So green building certification, which Shabir spoke about, that's probably the biggest recognition that a mall can have. So just to update you, all our assets today are green building certified, and almost 86% of them are platinum, right? And this is a big achievement considering that we don't even build our own malls, uh, unlike Shabir. So the other advantage is the cost optimization, Shailesh. So what we have seen is, while the initial capex may look very big, especially when you are investing in let's say renewable projects or some asset modification at the mall level. But it actually pays out. For example, I spoke about the VFDs, installing variable frequency drives in our various motors. What we have seen is typically within 6 to 8 months, the cost is recovered because of the savings that we do. That is an advantage. Uh, Customer loyalty, Salish. Our shoppers are becoming more and more conscious of their choices today, right? And malls who embrace these sustainable practices uh, will have a greater recall and will attract more customers eventually, especially those customers who prefer choosing responsible options, right? Shabir did mention about investors. That's a big advantage. So we have we submitted our GRESB scores and DJSI scores last year. We scored 76 in GRESB and 61 in DJSIs. Now these scores, Shailesh, they mean something. When you quote these numbers to somebody who understands ESG, especially the investors, they know that the company is being run in a more responsible manner. We are resubmitting these assessments this year. Hope to score much better than what we did last year. So I feel these are the advantages of incorporating ESG within the system, within the company. Salih?
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. No, thanks. And one aspect is, of course, it's a reward, recognition, but at the end, it's also a lot around that experience which I talked about, right? And with that, Shabir, if I talk about the experience, I mean, for me, going to a mall is not just about going out and buying a product. For me, it's going out with my family, getting that experience, right? As I'm a sustainability professional, if I see LEDs, simple, I'm like, okay, all right, good start. I'm talking about a few years ago. That was the old concept, but that experience, right? So what are you doing, Shabir, in your role, thinking long term, thinking a forward-looking approach, saying what more can be done to enhance that experience? And I started with how more and more Gen Z, and Gen Y, and millennials, of course, but Gen Z, Gen Y for definitely, they look for checkouts, right? Automated checkouts, contactless checkouts, right? And I see that my son, I mean, he just go in and check out, whether it's groceries or it's even products. So what's some of those? And any views on that, Shabir, how all that concept is coming to India?
So I guess it's not far away, contactless checkout, because each individual brand is probably working on that in terms of how they want to do this. Having said that, I thought it's important to mention that, we have almost 10 years back, we had worked with the Clinton Climate Foundation of the US, where we had retrofitted, our malls and hotels for, working on the performance energy contracting model, where you kind of retrofit the mall to save power and water, and the ESCO does that for you, and if the energy does not get saved, the ESCO writes a check back to you. The reason for saying this is that malls which were built before and which are not green, this was an ideal way for us to do that. So at that time we did implement a lot of practices, and in fact it got showcased in the C40 cities in that year. And President Clinton, when he was in India, he kind of wanted to walk through bit more Malad and have a look at, but I guess the Secret Service guys didn't allow that, to see the measures which were implemented as part of his Clinton Climate Foundation. Having said that, when you look at the future, obviously in COVID, we looked at contactless for all our buildings, whether it's a mall, hotel, office. So anybody who enters and primarily, in an office, it's for the workstation. For the malls, when a guy enters a toilet, whether you look at contactless taps, when you look at the paper napkin coming out without contact, when you look at dual flushing. So those kind of things. So whether it is using Apple Pay or whether it is using contactless checkout. I mean, I'm sure the brands who are with whether in Nexus or within Orbit are working on that, and I see that happening because India has really taken off as far as IoT is concerned.
Yeah.
For everything. Okay. Thank you.
So Shabir, to you again, just an extension of you talked about it's coming and things are coming in. Well, let's compare, right? We all travel, we go on holidays. My home is Sydney, right, and spend a lot of time there every second to third month to see the family. Even if I'm working in India, I always compare, right? And we all do. Now, when we look at, if I look at Singapore as an example, and this is where I would like to come to both of you and our green initiatives. The moment I go into, I can really feel that the eco-conscious principle is right ingrained. I can see that, of course, the electricity, they're saving electricity because I can see enough natural sunlight. That's sustainable design, right? I can see it optimizes daylight lighting. LEDs have already covered, right? So those kind of initiatives. If I would like to compare, say, what would be some of the global crown jewel examples or malls which you think are doing these things pretty well on the green initiatives? I covered energy. We can talk about water, ventilation. Yeah, I think Nilesh, you covered the solar aspect, which was brilliant. So on those eco-friendly, side of things, I would like to come to both of you. Start with you, Shabir, and come to you then, Nilesh. If you can highlight anything, what you have seen overseas, what push, because there's a global, the push you have. I have met some of your global colleagues as well, and they must be bringing those ideas or asking those questions, right? So over to you, Shabir. Any highlight around those, the principle of eco-conscious?
Yeah. So if you look at using skylights, they have these large skylights or the small ones. That is obviously helping you in terms of, because India has got a lot of sun, right? In terms of it would be prudent not to use it. So use of skylight is something which is, we did that way back in Orbit Mall Malad when we have a huge skylight right in the entrance and entrance lobby where people can see that. When we looked at measures which which a mall and whether investors from abroad are looking at, measures which are eco-friendly would I guess India would be ahead in terms of immediate, like Nilesh talked about EV charging. So EV charging for vehicles is something which we've started doing that. But when you look at organic waste recycling, that is also something which we look at. When you look at recycled material, I think in India this is something which we use. Whether you look at fly ash or whether you look at the glass which is used for your malls, whether you look at the aluminum which is used. So these all have a recycled content. They are not virgin materials in terms of having used that. Like India uses a lot of what we call as AAC block, blocks which have a lot of recycled content, which are used for in terms of construction. So whether it's daylighting or whether it's biophilic design, we do have moved on in terms of what the recent malls have done. And in Vizag mall which we are constructing, we are definitely going to look at a lot more contactless and touchless technologies. Thank you.
That's brilliant. No, thank you. The way the malls in India are transforming, I won't say have transformed, are transforming is simply amazing. That's my own experience. So coming to you, Nilesh, and on the same lines, what would be 2-3 areas you would like to highlight based on your own experience of interacting with your global stakeholders, both internally, externally? Some forward-looking insights, what you can share on the whole concept of eco-friendly design, eco-conscious operations, and using technology, right? The technology comes in, and you covered PFPs and all.
Yeah.
Over to you, Nilesh, please.
Yeah. Shabir mentioned about contactless payment. You also mentioned it. The contactless payment that we are exposed to, the Paytms and the GPays of the world, probably it is still the first version of the contactless payment that we see outside. That day is not very far in India where you will be touching your phones to make the payments. It's already happening outside. Whether you may be smiling at a camera tomorrow to make the payments. It will happen soon. On the tech side, there is a lot happening around IoTs, Shailesh, Internet of Things. We are yet to see some drastic movement within India. For example, automation in HVAC based on the mall occupancy. So if the mall is probably has more customers, our HVACs, they operate at a higher capacity. So those kind of automations we are yet to see in India, but it is slowly coming in, and it will probably make our life easier, better for the facility heads at the mall level. So I mean, these are 2 or 3 things that I can think of right now, Shailesh.
No, thanks, Nilesh, and thanks, Shabir. I mean, I'll just add to it my own experience, which I was pretty amazed over the past couple of years. During COVID, what I've seen back in Sydney with Westfield, right? Westfield malls, as we all know. I remember old days where I'll take a parking ticket, then go and pay, right? Come back, insert that, and get out. Not anymore. I mean, over the past couple of years, I go in, it automatically senses my, number plate, my registration, who gets in, park the car, come out, and I'm out. And automatically goes back from my account. Done. Right? Never have seen any mistake even happening. Sometimes I was a bit like technology, how much it will deduct, right? And all that. Amazing.
First tags have started in majority.
This is already here.
Exactly. Exactly. And those parkings in the malls, as we are saying, and that's something which is the fast tag, exactly. And if we can link it to malls and everywhere, I mean, it makes it quick, right? And it's coming.
Shailesh, I think you have not visited a Nexus mall recently. Please do.
I will.
You'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll be pleasantly
surprised. I will.
Well,
thank you. And this is what I want to hear, right? And it's a great way into that experience, and making it effective, making it quick. Look, I guess it's a great discussion, and I'm keen. It's close to 4:45. Some closing remarks from me. I'll pass it on to Anjeev, and then I'm happy to take any questions. Right? We should keep audience a chance. So my closing remarks. When it comes to environmental, social governance and green initiatives, doesn't matter. We are talking about, in this case, we are talking about malls, but overall, goes through compliance, goes through harm minimization, and goes through the next step of value addition. And what we have covered today is the mention of BRSR, the mention of having good practices, operational practices, management system came, and then value add is through technology. How you are adding value to that experience, right? Thinking forward, and that's what right from two of the experts who are driving it. It's not right from the horse's mouth, as I say, right? And you even corrected me, Nilesh, right? You need to go and see Shailesh. You're talking about home, but this is home. Check this, and I just loved it, seriously. But look, I'll pass it on to Anjeev. But thanks, Nilesh. Thanks, Shabir. Always a pleasure. Every time I talk to you, I learn a lot more from your humility, not only your experience. So. And that's another aspect of ESG, which we haven't covered today, right? More than happy to cover in the future. Over to you, Anjeev, please.
Okay. Thanks, Shailesh. In fact, Mr. Gautam Das, his message is congratulations, Nilesh sir and Nexus team on adoption of renewable energy close to 50% of your consumption. Sustainability initiatives may require an initial capital investment, but you decided to go ahead. what would you advise to others on commercial viability of such sustainable investments?
Yeah. I remember I mentioned that ESG is not new. It is already part of our culture and values. Whenever you have a decision to make and you have two options, more than in most of the time you will choose an option which is probably more responsible or more sustainable. Uh, and so that was the answer that we had. We wanted to become more responsible and more sustainable company. Hence, we decided to make that investment. Uh, the returns are there. The payback periods are there, but it is about making the decisions first, right? So the choices are up to us, which side we want to go to.
No, but the initial, I think, Nilesh, the initial cost is very high. Do you
Anjeev,
think everyone can afford it?
The malls are here. It's not a short-term business, Anjeev.
Yeah.
The malls that we run will be here for a couple of decades from now, right?
Yeah,
A typical payback of doing a solar project is roughly around 2.5, 3 years. Beyond that, anything that you save will hit your bottom line straight, right? So it is a fair bit of calculation and a conscious decision to invest in these capex.
Nilesh, do you get some support from the government also when you adopt this?
There are tax benefits, Jeev, that we can claim. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a very, interesting and enlightening session today. And I thank you, all my panelists, for sparing your precious time and sharing your experiences. And I hope all my viewers must have, enjoyed it. And I have got a question again from Sheetal Choksi. The lake of happiness is a great incentive. Can you elaborate a little more on this? Great work by Nexus and Enorbit teams.
Sheetal, hi. Lakes of Happiness, this is something that we started last year, Sheetal. So we met a person named Mr. Anand Maligawad. He's based out of Karnataka, Bangalore, and he's also called the Lake Man of India. Before we met him, our idea of lake rejuvenation was more cosmetic, and it was less of rejuvenation and probably more of beautification around the lake. When we met him, we understood what the work is. It was an eye opener for everyone at Nexus Malls. So what we do is we identify lakes using his help or people like him who help us in identifying the lakes. We go to the municipal corporations and the local authorities. We demarcate the perimeter of the lake. There are cases where we have actually saved a lake from getting taken over by builders. So
Okay.
and then trying to make it deeper, making sure that the bund wall on the sides are strengthened. We have enough plantations on the sides to hold the soil, and then waiting for the rains to take over and fill the lake. So Sheetal, please feel free to contact me separately. It's a very interesting initiative.
So I think we had again, I thanks Nilesh, Shailesh and Shabir for sparing your precious time for SCAI and all our participants. We shall be posting the recording of this webinar on our website. Anyone can access it. So with this, we conclude our today's session. Thanks, all of you. Thanks.
Thanks for the
Thank you,
opportunity.
Shailesh. Thank you, Anjeev. Thank you, Shabir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nilesh.